Most Americans said the Israel Hamas war will lead to wider conflict in the region involving other countries, according to a survey released on Friday. Around 63% of Americans said the Israel Hamas war, which is days away from its 1 year anniversary, is at least fairly likely to lead to a wider war and encompass other countries in the region, according to a recent The Economist slash YouGov survey. Some 22% were not so sure, while 15% of U.S. adults said it's not very likely or not at all likely. The war began on October 7th last year after the Palestinian militant group Hamas attacked Israel and killed around 1,200 Israelis and took some 250 hostages. Since then, the Israeli military bombardment of Gaza has killed over 41,000 Palestinians, a tally that does not differentiate combatants from civilians. Americans sympathize more with the Israelis than with the Palestinians. A poll found that's a damn shame. Like, that's really just okay, whatever. The poll found approximately 33% of Americans sympathize with the Israelis, while some 24% were not sure. Another 24% said equal, while 19% of U.S. adults sympathize with the Palestinians. So there's almost twice as much American support for the Israelis as there are for the Palestinians. When split by party lines, Democrats have more sympathy for the Palestinians, while Republicans have the most sympathy for the Israelis. Around 33% of Democrats sympathize with the Palestinians. Nearly one third of Democrats, 32%, said both, while 14% sympathize with the Israelis. That's interesting. The majority of Republicans, 63%, sided only with the Israelis. 14% said they sympathize with both, while only 5% of Republican voters sympathize with the Palestinians. And really, that's a result of all of the propaganda that gets pushed by Trump and Haley and the rest of these right wing bastards that are so pro Israel. They pretend that there's just no room for any concern for Palestinians whatsoever. The poll was conducted September 21st to 24th, with response being selected from YouGov's opt-in panel. The margin of error was around 3%. Do I believe this conflict is going to lead to a wider war? Well, it's already been a year, and I don't think that it's found a way to really, get itself involved with other countries. Like, I know other countries are, giving aid and having their own opinions and whatnot, but I so far don't see this turning into a wider conflict when we know that the Israeli Palestinian relationship has been horrible for decades, and it has not led to, as far as I can remember, wider conflicts with other regions. The part of this article that was so interesting to me, because I know that Americans, most of us, don't follow this stuff regularly, and because of that, we're more susceptible to believe what politicians tell us about these conflicts. When we hear, the poor little Israelis that were attacked by the evil, powerful Palestinians, and of course, we always have to say this over and over again. We do not sympathize with Hamas taking out these innocent Israeli civilians, but we also need to not have blanket support for a government that is fine with treating Palestinian civilians like garbage. Looking at this poll and seeing that there are more Democrats who support the Palestinians than support Israel, or I guess at least the Israelis, makes me have a little bit of hope. When I see the 63% of Republicans that support Israel over Palestine, I know it's got to be because of APAC and these politicians that talk about how we are Israel's greatest defense. Because, like, I just think about this. There are a lot of Republicans who, if you sit them down and you ask them about their foreign policy beliefs, they're anti-war. They are against, these overseas conflicts that go on year for year, and there's clearly some overlap between them and Democratic Party voters. So it's all the more crazy when you think about their support for Israel. You're like, okay, we're giving this country a bunch of money that we could use for our own civilians. And we're using it to treat people who have historically been mistreated like trash for the actions of a few of them that that in all likelihood a lot of the civilians were now attacking, given that the last Hamas election was like in 2006 or something, probably didn't even vote to put these people in power in the first place. So it's so crazy that because of all of the bootlicking that politicians give to the Israeli government, you have a majority of the right wing party's voters, at least according to this poll, siding with that government. And I don't know what we can really do to, I guess, wake them up from, because I said this before, a lot of these people are in a cult, and when something like that happens, it means that there's not much we can do to change their minds because they're just going to go along with the position of their dear leader. But no, I don't think we're going to get a wider war. I think over the next couple of years, there's going to keep like I think in all seriousness, I believe this will be a very important event historically in terms of Israeli Palestine relations, and it'll probably have something to do with getting more people on the side of Palestine. But I don't see wider conflicts. If there's any bigger conflict, it's going to be more, which this is already happening, skirmishes between some Palestinian civilians, some Israeli civilians, like more furthering of their divide, but not you know causing some global conflict. God, these polls, they get so fascinating. Like when I see them, sometimes I smile, sometimes I am just grossed out. And I hope that one day most Americans wake up to the fact that the US for too long has been giving money to an apartheid state government that feels like it can treat a whole group of people like garbage. I hope one day the voters are able to wake up to that, and when they do, the politicians won't be able to sit there and be more, honestly, more loyal to a foreign government than their own government. You got Blackburn, the senator from Tennessee, talking about deporting foreign students for expressing support for Hamas, or it's like literally so antithetical to free speech. Like you could go outside and say you despise America, and you won't like you wouldn't get deported, your own country. But if you say you're sick of some other region, you risk having your scholarship revoked and being sent back. Like just it's insane. But like I said, the voters are waking up to it more and more, and I just hope that trend continues.